It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. All right, the rest of our show today is going to be very draft heavy, as you'd imagine. We are just 2 weeks away from the draft. Also, I should have said this off the very top of the show, but very exciting news. Next week, the podcast we record on Wednesday hits YouTube late Wednesday, out to the audio world on Thursdays. Is going to be a crossover episode with our guys Brian Baldinger and Jason Lockenfora from Odyssey's Big Giant NFL Insider podcast. So I'm pretty pumped about that. So we'll have Baldy, who obviously watches a ton of tape and is kind of one of the, I would say he's like kind of a trailblazer in the, hey, I'm a former player who watches tape realm. So paved the way for the Logan Paulsens of the world. Baldy's been doing it for a long time and is fantastic. Has his Baldy's breakdowns. He's so good. You can also catch him on NFL Network. And Lockenfora, who's obviously one of the top insiders in the league, has been in kind of that insider position, knows so many people in the league for a decade plus, and is also a host on one of our stations, 105.7. He does afternoons in Baltimore. So they're going to join us. Big Giant crossover episode. If you listen to their podcast, you listen here. Listen to the episode on our feed. Like, give us the numbers. No, I'm just kidding. But it'll be the same podcast on both. Really, really pumped for that. So that'll be next Wednesday. Make sure you're subscribed so you do not miss it. All right. As for the rest of the show today, let's start off with Mel Kiper's mock, Logan, because it was very, very interesting. He dropped his 2-round mock yesterday, and he's got a trade in the top 3 that I can't decide whether I love or I absolutely hate. He's got Tennessee trading up to the 3 spot with Arizona to take Anthony Richardson. What do you make of that decision?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Tennessee at the moment is that they seem to be kind of in the midst of deciding whether or not they want to rebuild. You know, they cut Taylor Lewan. They moved on from Ben Johnson or Ben Jones. I forget exactly what his name is. Their starting guard, they paid a lot of money to. They're kind of in flux. And usually when you start cutting big kind of franchise, big money players, it's like, are we getting younger? Are we building in the draft? There was talks of trading Tannehill, talks of trading Derrick Henry, all of those different things. So I do think that when you look at this move, it kind of would just kind of finalize the rebuild. You're basically saying we are getting ready to move on from Ryan Tannehill. Maybe he sits with us for a year while we bring the young guy Richardson along. This is definitely a team that is a perfect candidate for this type of move. You know, I was kind of leaning towards Atlanta. We were talking about that a little bit before the show started, just because I think Atlanta's offense is more ready to accommodate an Anthony Richardson. But if you think Anthony Richardson's the guy and you think he's going to be franchise changing type of player, like, this is the type of move a team needs to make. And part of it is because if you're planning on being good next year, you know, let's say you win 8 games if you're Tennessee, you will not be in a position to pick one of the top guys. You're going to be in the same position next year. And at least now at 3, there's a team that doesn't need a quarterback that would be willing to trade with you. And I think you have a shot at getting a guy that you think has a high upside. So that this feels like a good move for Tennessee. It just would kind of show their fans the direction that their team is going for the future.
So here's the reason why I potentially love it and potentially hate it is just 2 sides of the same sword. You drafted Malik Willis in the 3rd round last year, and he was not good in his games. So bad, in fact, that you go out and sign Joshua Dobbs, who's not exactly a world beater, to play your most important games of the season after Ryan Tannehill is hurt late in the year. So you do have one more year of Tannehill. He can certainly be a bridge guy if you want to give Willis another year, or even Richardson if you draft him. But you have this crazy athlete with a huge arm, incredible mobility, great runner. Like, you've got him in your building, and you've already put 1 year into him, and you drafted him in the 3rd round. So it's not like you drafted him in the 1st, but you did draft him in the 3rd. And for that reason, drafting another guy who is a better version of that, who's also going to need time, feels incredibly silly. However, if you saw you saw Willis, and you're like, oh God, we messed that up. we know we want this kind of guy because we want to be a run first team, whether it's with Derrick Henry, whoever comes after Derrick Henry. But we know that that's who we want to be, and having a quarterback who can be 1,000-yard rusher is something that's important to us. But Willis is not that guy because he's so far away, aka he'll never get there. Then I guess I understand it. If it basically, to me, this is really smart if you know that Willis is broken beyond repair or not able to ever get to a playable level. However, if he is, and he just needs a little bit more time in a year where you're already kind of rebuilding anyway, I would just stick with Willis and use your top, whatever pick that they have. I can't remember, their 11th, I think,
11.
Is where their natural spot is. They're trading up to third here. I would use the 11th pick on literally anything else. And I just can't decide. I mean, I guess it's hard to make that determination without knowing what Willis is from the inside. But that's kind of where I sit. I was like, if Willis is broken, sure, love it. If he's not, then just keep developing him and go that route.
I mean, that's essentially what the Atlanta Falcons have committed to, at least in name, to Ritter, right? They've kind of done the same thing, third-round quarterback, whatever. I do think it's important to acknowledge the distinction between Willis and Richardson. Like, Willis was so incredibly raw, so raw. And then there was all these rumors around the combine that he couldn't, from his college coaches, that he couldn't learn offenses. And I think you see that now, right? And so with that information, like, this does not surprise me in the least that this would even come up. And I think what you're seeing now is that, like, you need to take more bites at the apple. And if he can't do it, and it's like, if he's in a question that he can't do it, let's go with a guy who's a little bit more of a sure thing. He's a better athlete. He's played a better football at a higher level. He's shown more traits. Now, is he still a little bit of a developmental guy? Absolutely. But it's not. Don't clump those two guys together. I think it's natural to do that because of their skill sets and because of their play styles. But
and the fact they both need development, it's just like, how much do they need?
Right. But I think Richardson is closer, and I think because of his physical freakiness, you feel a little bit better about it. So if this is the way they want to go, again, I said I'd probably prefer Atlanta, but if this is the way they want to go, I think this is an excellent move for them, because you're basically saying we need a franchise quarterback of the future, a young guy. And if this is your evaluation, trust your evaluation and get that done. So I think that is, I don't hate it. I never hate trading up and taking a shot on a quarterback if you think it's the guy. I think that's where the discussion is do you have enough confidence that Anthony Richardson is that guy? And I don't know if I can definitively say yes based on what I've seen. Like, would I trade up for him? I'd be tempted, but I don't think I would, just because there's a lot of question marks about him and his development, his lack of experience, all those different things.
Yeah. I think hearing what you just said about Willis, like, at first I was like, I hate this so much. And then as kind of we talked through it yesterday on the show, I was like, actually, I think I love this. And I think I've landed on, like, okay, I'm down with this, because to me, what this says, if like this is out there, whether it's getting leaked to Mel or just like through league circles, or he's proposing this based off what he's heard about Willis, it's like they already know, like, Willis was a mistake.
For sure they know.
He's just never gonna
the
get
Dobbs
there.
thing. The Dobbs thing is the biggest indicator ever. Willis was in the offense for like 15 weeks as the number 2 guy. Right? For 15
and number
weeks.
1 for some of those weeks.
Right. And then you say, this guy can't even execute after that. We can't get a package out there for him for whatever reason. And you get a guy off the street who executes the offense better than him. I think that's all the indication you need. Right. And maybe he has a great offseason. Maybe he's really developed. I don't know. But I'm not mortgaging my future or the future of my franchise on that.
I would say the only thing that would be a little tempting is to try it again, see if he can figure it out with another offseason. And then if he bombs, then you're in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. But that is risky. And if you like Richardson, why would you just take Richardson?
I think that's the big thing. If you like,
so it just depends on how much you like. Like, if you think Richardson can develop into the guy, and because of where you're at and your current phasing of your roster, that you have a year till you're going to be competitive anyway. Like, they might trade Derrick Henry on draft day. Like, that's a possibility. Like, they absolutely are trying to reset in Tennessee. And so if you have that year, like, and Richardson's ceiling is what it is, like, I don't mind that at all. Who else do you think is a possibility? You mentioned Atlanta to trade up for Richardson. Like, who are the best fits for him if someone is going to leapfrog Indy? And also, if you're Indy, would you consider trading up one spot to make sure that you get him?
I think if you're Indy, you just trade up one spot to make sure you get the guy that you want. Whether it's Richardson or Levis. I don't have any insight on who they want. A team that I love for Richardson is Detroit. They have an extra first round pick. Can you move up with they're picking 6? Can you move up to 3? Get their guy of the future, have him sit for 2 years behind Goff. Like, I think that is excellent. And I know they feel like they're in a window. I think they probably feel like they can win now with Goff. But if you do feel that way, you're not going to be picking this high ever again. And to have access to this kind of talent in this draft, I think is pretty hard to pass up. So that's a team that I think if I was them, I would definitely think about doing that. Will they do it? Probably not. But those are probably my 3 teams: Detroit, Atlanta, and Tennessee. Quite frankly, to trade into that 3rd spot. And I don't know who they're going to pick, but to trade into the 3rd spot for their quarterback of the future.
Yeah. The Atlanta fit seems so logical.
Seems silly, right?
They want to be a crazy run heavy team. They want to run a ton of outside zone. Like, it feels like they could recreate as close to what we've seen of the 2012 offense you were a part of here.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we can go super zone read. We can simplify things for our quarterback. Our quarterback is a home run threat to score from anywhere on the field with his legs or his arm, because just like RG, like, Richardson has a cannon. Like, his immediate best weapon is going to be his legs, where he could be 1,000-yard rusher from day one. He's also a better runner than RG was. Like, Robert in a straight line was incredible. And you think of like the run against Minnesota, where he gets out on the edge, he gets to run straight, nobody can catch him. But like, as a shifty, like, make people miss guy, and obviously the physical strength and size that Richardson has compared to what Robert was. Talking about 2 totally different athletes, but like, Robert, as you well know, is someone who was on the receiving end of his catches. Like, he had a cannon. Like, the deep ball was incredible for him. And he could really zip it. And obviously Richardson has that as well. It feels like Atlanta could recreate some level of that with Arthur Smith. And the question becomes, like, do they want to give up the capital it takes, or do they have too many holes elsewhere on their roster? Like, to me, that would be the concern if I was Atlanta. But they've also done a good job of filling some of that stuff in free agency. Like, they obviously get Okudah. They'll see if they can revive his career and keep him healthy to start. And then, is he good? But they also have like Jesse Bates. They have, who they signed in the secondary. They did some smart things in free agency to bulk up some of their needs. They re-signed McGarry, and all of a sudden it's like, in a very, very, very weak NFC South, they got as good a shot as anybody.
Right, absolutely. So, I mean, that seems like, again, I agree. I think that's probably the best natural fit for him, but they've committed to Ritter, at least in name, and we'll see on draft day. I think this year, draft day is going to be a little crazy with regards to trades. I think it's going to be all over the place, because I think we're going to talk about this later in the show, but like, I think depending on who you talk to, you're going to get wildly different evaluations on some of these guys. Like, I listened to it's a scouting podcast, and they have a couple scouts on that kind of give former scouts that give their grades on guys. And very rarely are they unanimous after the first 1 or 2 guys. And I think with Richardson, for example, the last one I listened to, some people had him as the 6th guy. Some people have had him as 7. Some people were, he's the number 1 guy. So I think it just, depending on the team and their evaluation, you're going to get drastically different perspectives and drastically different opinions on what the trade is worth to the team. So,
thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
We do. 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do it.
Very, very smart.